Hey, welcome back to the Tribal Knowledge Podcast, where we explore the art and science of building vibrant online communities. I'm your host, Tom Diederich. I'm an online community manager, content orchestrator, and a total believer that growth doesn't just happen, it's designed, measured, and nurtured. Today, I'm really thrilled to be joined by someone who really embodies that philosophy, Dani Weinstein. He's head of IBM's TechXchange community, and Danny's career has spanned the industries for transformations from early stage advocacy programs to large scale enterprise ecosystems, all really grounded in one key principle, that's innovation with intent. Today, we're going to be diving into growth and measurement, how to scale communities without losing their soul, the power of super user programs, and what metrics matter when you're trying to prove that magic mix of engagement and impact. Danny, welcome. I know we met when you were building HP's infancy community, and you expanded it to a global kind of juggernaut community with moderators in every country around the world. That was quite a. Was that your first journey into community management, or how did you get in there?
Yeah, so that was actually the beginning of my community journey back in the HP days back in 2007. Yeah, Tom, it's great to be on your show. I appreciate you having me here. And so, Dani Weinstein, I've spelled Danny, pronounced Donnie, and I've been doing this since the early days with Tom back at HP. But yeah, so career was really quite a bit. Always been customer facing roles. In 2006, as part of the support organization, we had won a JD Power Award for best in class support, and in '07 they did not renew it because we were missing a branded HP support forum. So that was the kind of the business case, and we ultimately vetted vendors, went with Lithium, and that's how the journey started. So that original social care team, we launched 7 language communities in 15 months and scaled us to a couple million members and 100 million customers in traffic, and went on my way from there to a couple of startups, Doma, Kaltura, SAP, and now IBM.
That's fantastic. I know that it's very competitive out there in the job market, so that that just proves that you're a rock star in the community leadership space. So very really proud of you, and great to be your friend for all these years. So what attracted you to the shifting gears from I guess you were process excellence. What were you doing before you moved into communities at HP?
So I had a very long career at HP. I started as a product manager and then product line manager, but really most of my career, the last 15 years, was in support and services, including communities. It really was around, we were part of this massive consumer support organization, which around the time we had launched the communities, I think we had a $1 billion budget. So you think about all the touch points for call, email, chat, remote call, email, phone, chat, support. And so designing those experiences to drive efficiency. So everything from overall the web experience to chat support, email support, remote control support, driver download experience. And so, global teams, multi-language, we had a massive web presence. And again, the driving factor to create these branded forums was the need to, because we didn't get the JD Power Award renewed. And so I was tapped to be on the original 3-person social care team. And, fortunately for me and for our team, we partnered with Lithium, who had amazing people, including yourself. And we quickly became certainly top 3 or maybe top 2 customer within a year. I mean, we were spending well over 7 figures, and had the the good fortune of learning from some of the smartest people in the industry, including Joe Cothra.
Yeah,
So that's really where my journey began. That last 7 years of managing and scaling and leading teams to take these to the level we did was sort of my master's in community leadership 101. And then of course I continued that journey in smaller pre-IPO unicorn B2B environments, and then going back to big company with SAP and now with IBM.
I think it's almost easier to work at a big company, less the bureaucracy, than it is with a small company, because you can really prove the impact that you're making. Do you agree, or is it easier?
Yes and no. I think there's trade-offs for both. I think at the end of the day, even if you're starting with a smaller company and they don't even have a community, it goes back to they have relationships with their customers. They're having those conversations. They're seeking the same value propositions, whether that be having a community for people to find answers to their questions and not calling support, whether it's content curation of their broader community versus hiring technical people to create the content. And of course, when you're at a larger firm, there's a lot more material to work with, and obviously bigger teams to work with. But still, at the end of the day, whether you're large or small, you have to prove your worth, and prove your value. So data is definitely the key here, and understanding how to not only measure but also articulate that and tie it to the business that you're in is extremely important.
Yeah, I think, and constantly communicating that value, and making sure that leaders across everyone that touches community, which probably is everybody, they know what's going on in community. You're tapping their teams, maybe some editorial councils or support, powwows and meetings. How has community evolved since HP, which was like about 200 years ago in community terms, to now you're at IBM, and like what platform are you using? What platforms, like a Frankenstack type of thing, I imagine, with support and product management, and how does that look, that landscape?
Sure. So, HP, we were part of this, again, massive support organization. So the North Star KPI was support deflection, and we got very good at measuring that very specifically. I think as I went into the smaller startups, I kind of articulated there's really four major verticals of value, but there are even more than that. So the quicker wins are around support deflection. The content creation actually drives value for education and for marketing. Really, the big one, which many companies are not able to do, it takes quite a bit of time. It actually requires having either your CRM systems connected or the data connected to understanding who is in the community relative to your business, is the advocates and the advocacy element of the community and those super fans. And so, would be the IBM champions or the Salesforce trailblazers, understanding their promotion and advocacy of the brand by answering questions, speaking at conferences, posting on LinkedIn, whatever that may be, and their impact on the account and on the community at large. That's the big one to chase, because then we could actually prove a demo with our analytics that accounts that we had a pretty robust health scorecard, and so we could show that accounts that had active members in community and even in learning were typically 3 points healthier and much more likely to renew and upsell versus those that had no activity in community, which were more likely to churn. That was a big tie-in, and actually that brings more stakeholders to the table, particularly on customer success, account managers, and so forth. The last one is around voice of customer. So, bringing the engineering team in to leverage the power of community for ideation and product feedback, and having one source of truth instead of chasing an email to the CEO, an email to the account team, an email to a support case, comments in the community, having all in one place to curate, vote up, but have that tied to, well, who's actually voting up and what counts do they represent and how much money is tied to the idea. You can make a much more informed decision. So from an evolution perspective, I think where we are today, obviously we've seen a lot of the big players in community have moved on. I mean, of course, really doesn't exist anymore. Jive also kind of imploded. And we really have a handful of big players left, I think, in the enterprise space, whether that be Higher Logic, Vanilla, Gainsight, Discourse, and there are quite a number of what I would call smaller players that serve a large audience, whether that be everything from Bevy to Common Room to Circle. At the end of the day, it's all about, I think we've evolved from this sort of going to a destination, community.ibm.com, to we're really in a community everywhere environment today. Meaning the customer chooses how they engage with the brand, whether that be at our home base or in other key channels, whether that be on LinkedIn, X, YouTube, GitHub, Stack Overflow. You need to have the right tools such as Common Room or others to listen and engage. And lastly, especially post-pandemic, people want to get back in person. So understanding, who's showing up at my events online, in person, who's showing up at my user groups, who's coming to my big conference, and having that really 360-degree view. And that's also very challenging to do. So that's, I think, where we are today. Number one, and secondarily, we're certainly seeing this rapid acceleration across the world of AI adoption. And even now, I mean, I'm connecting with our peers in the space about how do you manage that. I mean, there's sort of an infinite number of use cases that we've already, started to discuss and look at, and how do you leverage AI to, more quickly find, especially with the superfans, questions to answer, or even to questions that need a best answer, but even, use those tools to better moderate the community. But at the same time, we're also seeing now, literally, it's getting more pronounced. New members actually copying, pasting content from AI, and actually in some cases not having quality content. And so even our champions are even, pointing out to us, hey, this is generated by AI. It's actually got some inaccuracies. So we're coming up right now with our vendor, and also internally, we need a policy statement about how do we manage that. Do we allow it? We're looking at adding a checkbox to our post to say, this post was made with AI. We're actually going to gamify for our superstars, those people that actually go in and moderate and actually augment content that's not 100% accurate in their, who have the expertise. We want AI to make the community better, but not make it worse. And at the same time, we also don't want to allow people to gamify by copy paste to suddenly rise in the ranks and be considered to be a star or a champion. So we're kind of navigating that, and I'm not alone. I mean, again, talking to our friends at Bill Johnston and a lot of our peers in the space, we're all dealing with that same challenge. So, and I think we're going to see an evolution of traditional Q&A sort of shrinking because of AI, but it's also going to, I think, facilitate what community is all about, is this more of the authentic conversations and relationship building.
Yeah, you mentioned the AI, policies on AI, and there are tools. I guess you could incorporate one into the forum that kind of spots if it's suspected AI content, and flags it. Maybe it gets moderated before it goes up. But I know you got that wrapped up. Let's talk about that super user program. I know that's a term that Joe Cothrell, I think, coined. So he's like my Dai sensei. I don't know about you, but certainly that's been going on with the community roundtable for since the 90s, or not the 90s, maybe the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the, like you said, it's one of the most effective but yet misunderstood levers for community engagement. So how do you identify these IBM champions? And then nurturing that connection so they become trusted people? Do you give them any recognition? Do they have any more admin rights than other members, or do they have any special private groups or events that they can go and kind of shine with you guys?
Sure. And so, coming into IBM now, almost 5 months in now, there's already a pretty robust champions program, and that's actually run by a separate team, but we work very closely with my peer Libby, and who's also a rock star in the space. And so, it's really done. They've got a fairly robust process. It's actually not limited to the engagement in the community per se, but it's also activity that's happening out on LinkedIn, what's happening at events, the influence on accounts, and there's a fairly robust, nomination process that's actually taking place right now. I think the deadline for those nominations ends in a couple of weeks. I got a chance in Orlando a few weeks back to meet quite a few of the champions who were there. Similar to Trailblazer with the Golden Hoodies, we've got Blue Jackets for our IBM Champions. That's a very coveted, prestigious award and honor, and they really value that recognition, and they're proud of it. So with all that, it's really about them demonstrating their knowledge, sharing their knowledge, and they're excited about sharing that in the community. Where we are right now, we actually just overhauled our entire gamification effort in community, and we're actually combining it. Our brand is called TechXchange, and so that includes really not only community, but also events, learning, training, user groups. And so we're looking at actually gamifying or recognizing customer engagement across all those touch points. So it's not just about what they specifically did only in community, but also they took training, they got certifications, if they spoke at a user group, if they're attending events, they're going to earn points to move up different levels. And so we did unveil at the conference this TechXchange Award. And so with that, we see that as a big opportunity for us to actually identify candidates for what we call the Rising Champions program, because then they can get nurtured and guided to potentially applying to become a champion. But to answer your point, the champions are very much engaged with IBM, staying at the forefront of knowledge and also influencing their accounts, but also their peers. But we think that that population is certainly untapped in the grand scheme of things. We're a big company, have a lot of customers, and we think that this new program, the TechXchange Rewards program, will actually throw a much bigger net for us to help bring more people into the fold and let them choose which swim lane, whether that be training, learning, events, community, or all, for them to kind of learn and grow with us.
That's fantastic. Now you mentioned measuring. How do you measure the impact of those champions, across all of these disparate platforms, social media, meetups, user groups? Do you have a tool that you're using, or that you can kind of see a dashboard view of each champion?
So we're still fine tuning our. I don't think we still have blue sky dashboards yet. We have a lot of grunt work that happens in the back end. But certainly we have a robust, enterprise level platform community. We've got a metrics team. We get good analytics about the day-to-day engagement and activity within our domain. And the same is true even on the learning and training side, as far as courses began, courses completed, credentials earned, badges earned. And now with the new experience around rewards, we're actually going to get metrics on, who's reaching levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the activity. Beyond that, we're doing more of a deeper dive on I would say that the webinar events, user group level of types of engagements, as well as there's a social media team that we work closely with. I know they're using tools like Sprinkler, and they're also tracking the social media activity of those, particularly the existing champions, but also those people that are now appearing on our radar as potential candidates for the Rising Champions program. So we're looking at the whole ecosystem.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned this collective tribal knowledge. Are you after this question answer is vetted? Are you feeding it to a knowledge base so that people can find it right away, or is it just we're finding it where it is, like a federated search, or what are you guys using?
Yeah, so within our community platform, we were early adopters of integrating our own Watson AI into our search capabilities. So we've got sort of version 1 out there. We're working on version 2, but we certainly see that the opportunity to drive more Q&A in the community, number one, and get those answered. Time to answer as well as time to receive a best answer. That's one big piece of it. We have a huge population of bloggers, and so we have a pretty robust blogging process. And so again, encouraging those folks to share their knowledge, and not just by responding to a question, but also proactively blogging about maybe their experience at the conference, maybe a training that they just took, or something else that they're excited about, and or starting a best practice discussion in the community. I think one thing that's on deck is we have one of the things that I'm pleased about since I've arrived is we're making really good progress, reaching out across the organization. So we've got now work streams working closely with the support team on making a better support experience. There already was a project with the product teams, and so they're looking at actually embedding community directly into the product experience fairly soon. But there's also already a legacy ideas exchange experience that's outside of community, and we're looking at moving that into the community. And so
that would be great.
That will also, I think, allow for, and again, there's a lot behind that as far as not just turning knob, but the processes and staffing. But I think that will also allow for more engagement and also more knowledge share, because I think that too, we're not going to let everybody who comes into the TechXchange experience just start out and suggest an idea. It needs to be earned. So they'll have to actually show that they've got knowledge, that reach level 2 or 3 to comment an idea, vote an idea, and even create an idea, gamifying that. But even in parallel, that knowledge is invaluable, especially when we're seeing situations of people who may not have the knowledge. They're simply leveraging AI and posting, creating a post or an answer that is not 100% accurate. So tapping those champions to verify that and vet that, and being an extension of our team, we're actually, because they actually came to us and said, "Hey, we're concerned about this. We don't want them competing with us." And we said, "Listen, your status is not at risk, but at the same time, we actually want to gamify your effort to make it right and recognize that knowledge, because that's how AI will get better. Is if we have clearly good content that AI can learn from in our community, then that federated search is going to get better, and also the it's going to drive better content in the community.
That's great. That's a big driver. And how do you reward the influencers? Do they have a special badge on their, or icon on their user profile?
So we've got, and again, this is all part of the new program. But so within the levels, we now have new badges for TechXchange for levels 1 through 5 that have been unveiled. We are going to be unveiling very community specific milestones. So it could be top blogger of the month, top author of the month, best most liked author of the month, or quarter or year. But have a community star ceremony next year at our TechXchange conference. In parallel to that, the champions have a very specific set of they get pretty incredible perks, whether that be speaking opportunities at our conference, passes. There's certainly the blue jackets. They get very prestigious badges, certifications. So that's sort of the peak of the mountain. But then my analogy here is that not everybody is going to get to the top of Kilimanjaro, and some people may be happy getting to what Base Camp 1, Base Camp 2, and so we're now mapping out those different things. But I think community specific, or even within TechXchange, I would say that unlocking, if their focus is on community, unlocking permissions like being able to move posts to the right place, or marking something as the right answer, or editing something that's broken, that would be to a trusted member. At the same time, the champions have their own dedicated space for conversations in the community, so that's private to them and our team. But beyond that, getting them access to additional value. So it could be, discounts on courses or certifications, or access to, early access to, be the first ones to earn the certification or course. And it also could be that, product really wants to vet an idea on a product, do some beta testing. We can tap into that audience. That's a set of trusted members.
That's fantastic. You and IBM are doing some fantastic, one of the few companies, like you said, to kind of recognize that, yes, there's advocates out there, influencers, but another thing to have a program celebrating them, allowing them to build their own brands, right? So I know that's huge. So let's shift gears to the measurement mindset. Every community leader loves and dreads that, because there's ultimately some part of some kind of tax that some leader asks for that's not in your group, and you're like, oh shit, I don't know what that is. So there's engagement, there's retention, of course, there's the customer satisfaction and net promoter scores, but community, like you said, often lives between the numbers. How do you balance quantitative metrics with qualitative storytelling when reporting to execs and stakeholders?
Sure. So, and I've been in a lot of different organizations throughout my career, whether that be, the support organization, operations, marketing. I'm now in sales, education, when we were at SAP. And I think you need to be able to have a tie into, the organizational's North Star. Because if you're not able to do that, your job's going to be very difficult. So, I know that, Joe had a comment that, a key indicator is, kind of feet on the street. So, are people, showing up, even if they're just visiting? What kind of traffic are we getting? Is it continuing to grow? Are the people coming back? How long are they staying on the site? So sort of what's the pulse of the community? That's sort of one element. And then sort of the eyeballs on, especially, high value content. What kind of views are we getting on best answers, on high value blogs? That, presents value to the business as well. Surveying, which is something we're teeing up soon, is also, surveying customers. Did you find what you were looking for today in the community? How was your experience? Did it, add value for you on your visit today? So you can then start tying those to either, deflection or, content value creation. The other piece is really, now that we've got, I think, a more robust gamification in play, we can actually, and we don't yet have our CRM connected, but we're doing sort of a manual backend tie and understanding, well, who is active in our community and where are they relative to the business, and start showing, okay, this person who's now a champion is actually influencing, X% of business of upsell at this particular account. So if you start to tell that story, you're talking to the GM of sales, who we ultimately report to. That's a key story to tell. How does the community drive brand value, and how does it show influence, upsell, retentions, and renewals? The same is true. If we bring the ideation into the community, we can start showing the efficiencies that are driven with engineering, and show either I was saved on chasing ideas, but also having impact on if we do this idea, there are 15 accounts worth $50 million in ARR. That has a business proposition or tie-in to why are we doing this work on reviewing, analyzing, commenting, and engaging with our customers on vetting a particular idea. So it goes back to, again, you want to get to a point where, especially now with some of the tools that are out there with AI to help us find them more quickly, get to reducing time to answer a question, get to time to resolution, make it easy, minimize the experience, or improve the experience so that it's really easy for people to post, really easy for people to blog, to find other people. I mean, one of the use cases now with AI is actually matchmaking. So it's actually, it does an analysis of, you've got your profile. I know I'm in West Coast, I'm in this particular industry, and, actually have suggestions from an AI bot to, it'd be great for you to connect with Tom because he's got the same kind of interest and experience. That's one use case. When we had this offsite with Bill several months back, we talked about, it's sort of like, it's kind of Big Brother scary, but if we actually had, detailed, robust profiles about the person, AI could actually go out and scan the internet universe and say, oh, Tom actually just blogged about this particular topic on LinkedIn. And before you even, you sign in and even haven't thought about posting, it would actually come up with a suggestion. You may want to share your thoughts today about, that topic you discussed on LinkedIn the other day and share it with the community. So it's actually prompting you to think about what you could do. So there's many of those things that are out there. But again, we're trying to move the needle on, we've got very healthy traffic. We've got about 500,000 members in the community, but we certainly have an opportunity to move the needle on engagement and time spent in the community. In addition to that, we want to make it easier for customers to find their local user group, find out about events, and make sure that they can go and attend those and connect with other people like them.
That's fantastic. That's the benefit of AI versus the downside. It sounds like the benefit is outweighing the downside, and because you can mitigate that part.
Absolutely.
I love how you're connecting data to narrative, and you're not just showing what happened, but why it matters. I think that's very important.
Oh yeah, you've got to. And I think that's probably one of the most challenging things in being a community leader is being able to tell that story very succinctly. With all due respect to my current and former executives, but at times presenting to executives is like kindergarten slides, ABCs, and so it needs to be very simple, to the point, and very high level. There's opportunity to get into the weeds down the road about some of the granularity, the detail behind it.
That's great advice. And I sometimes got way too in the weeds and lost the executives early on in my career. So that's a good lesson. And speaking of that, if you were advising a new community leader, maybe somewhere where you were in 2007, maybe they're at a mid-stage startup trying to scale, what tools or tactics would you say that they should prioritize first for growth and measurement?
So I would certainly say if you're new to the space, and one of the things I hired a couple people in my role recently, and had a lot of candidates. I think the common thing that I'm looking for is, obviously some people had a lot of community experience, but others maybe not so. Having customer relationship experience, dealing with customers is incredibly important. You need to understand how a customer thinks. What do they want? Why are they using your products? Number one, and being able to be a relationship builder is key. And then the second piece is really not to boil the ocean, but think about how can you facilitate conversation, whether that be online and or in person, and connect them to. You need to be a people connector. So if they're looking for help from support, or trying to get somebody with help from the account, or an answer to a particular product on Watson X, trying to help them connect the dots with that. After all those sort of basic things, you absolutely need to learn from people who are already there and get mentored about what's the tie into the business. how is my company staying in business? What's the, how, where are they making their money? What is the, what's keeping my executive up at night? What's their North Star KPI, and understand the work that you're doing. How does that relate to them? That's probably the most important thing I would suggest. You need to, learn that and understand that early on. And if there's a gap, help to figure out how do you close that gap so that you can always be able to tell that story.
That's really a great point, and it's kind of funny because a lot of folks in just starting out, maybe they're a junior leader, they think the magic's in the tech, but you're really describing as it's an orchestration across tech and human and events and the people and connecting.
Absolutely, and there really is no perfect platform or tool that's out there. I've used quite a few in the industry. I'm, fortunate to have some really good tools right now. But again, nothing is perfect, and there's always going to be. You've got to be able to run with what you have and make some, reasonable assumptions when you don't have the tools or the data. Very much the 80-20 rule, but there's no perfect tool or platform that's out there. And I think too, a lot of it is around the people and the processes. And so identifying ways to do things more efficiently and better. And I think AI is presenting a lot of opportunity to help in this cause. But again, it's to kind of, you need to proceed with caution about how you do that.
So I think you're saying the tools amplify the trust, but they can't create it. And that's kind of the art of what you do, right? Balancing automation with humanity.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we're people connectors. And, our charter is really to earn the trust of our customers as well as our peers. That's part of what we do.
You make it sound easy. It's really a fine line because you might be seen as a marketing person or someone who's alternative motives. So I think you make it sound easy, but this is something that takes years and years of craft, right?
Yeah.
So let's switch to. Oh, sorry, you want something to say something? Add to?
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay. Lessons from the field. So if you could distill one key lesson from your journey, your community management journey, something every community leader should keep in mind when they're trying to grow or measure impact, what would that be?
So I think this kind of goes back to the early days of Joe, which is you may feel the urgency. You've got to scale to 1 million members really fast. You've got to run to the moon. And I would caution on boiling the ocean. I think you need to start small. And Jeffrey Moore had a book back in the day called Crossing the Chasm. And I think you need to establish your base model and your beachhead. And even, in the early days of HP, we only had, I think, a couple of boards for printers and a couple of boards for PCs. And even though we had thousands of product lines, we had everybody and their grandmother chasing us saying, hey, no, I need a community space for this product. And it doesn't work that way. So you've got to start small. You've got to incubate. Even when I was at Kaltura and at Domo, you start with trusted customers. The account teams know who those are. You go on a tour, you start meeting with them, you set up some virtual calls, you maybe set up a beta where it's not public yet. You incubate that, you offer them up as, give them a founder's badge, but you want to start to incubate that conversation because at the end of the day, the community's got to be about what the customer wants to talk about, not necessarily what the brand wants to talk about based on your product structure. And so with that, you can then iterate and scale. And it's like planting a garden. You've got to, you've got to nurture it, grow it, sometimes trim it back. And lastly, you have to be able to say no to things. And so even though many people want to be good team players across the organization, at times, you are getting asked to do stuff that's way beyond scope or even beyond the core of what you're trying to do, and it may derail your efforts. And so you need to be able to push back and say, listen, happy to help out in the short term on this, but I'm sorry, we really can't help you out long term on this particular effort. You need to go back up and find help across the organization for that.
There's some real gold, some great quotes there. I'll be stealing for my next presentation. I'll just put a little footnote that it was you, and I think it's a reminder that most people, that the most scalable growth really starts with the smallest connections, and I think that you've captured that perfectly.
Oh yeah.
And so, I guess this has been such a fantastic conversation. You've given us a master class on how to scale with purpose, blending metrics with meaning and leadership with heart. For anyone listening, how can they find you and follow you?
So the best way to find me is out on LinkedIn. And so it's pretty straightforward. So it's linkedin.com/in/Dani Weinstein. So DaniWeinstein. And, we'll have Tom put the URL hopefully in the footnote.
Yeah.
But
I'll drop
the best way to get a hold of me. I'm open to new connections, and certainly find me in the IBM community as well. So community.ibm.com.
Is there any requirements? Do I have to be a customer, or can anyone join?
No, anybody can join. In fact, we just implemented up until a week ago, you had to create an IBM ID, and now we just enabled the ability to sign in with your Google ID or your Google account. So
that's huge.
Yeah,
that's a big impediment. So you've cleared that logjam just in your 5 months there. You're making quite an impact already.
Well, I can't take credit for the Google sign-in, but it did happen recently.
Great. Well, until next time, keep building, and remember, growth isn't just measured in numbers, but in belonging, as Dani said so eloquently. So thank you, Dani, very much.
Tom. Appreciate it, man. It's great seeing you.
Stick around for a minute. I'm just going to sign off. And tune in next time, everybody. If you have any questions for us, put them in the comments, and I'll make sure Dani gets it.
Thank you.